Today, I thought we could put aside the meats and potatoes of storytelling, characters, plot. We don't need you today. We don't need you today. Go away. And instead, just look at some Prey books. Just look at some Prey books and go, I do want to put a really quick disclaimer that book collecting is a separate hobby. You don't need to have fancy editions. I don't need to have fancy editions. When I talk about books, I always talk about the characters, the plot, and the things that really have emotional pull. And it doesn't matter how you consume that story, be it ebook, paperback, hardback, audiobook, it doesn't matter. But there's also nothing wrong with just oogling at some books and going, ooh. The first book is this illustrated deluxe edition of Lord of the Rings. It has this striking red slipcase that's really, really nice. There are a million different editions of Lord of the Rings, but the one thing I really like about this one is the illustrations inside are done by Tolkien himself. They might not be as detailed and beautiful as the Alan Lee illustrations, however there's something really special about it being Tolkien's own drawings, and it's really cool to see how he imagined a lot of these places and scenes. It has this beautiful leather-bound spine that comes onto this more cloth-bound cover and back, and it has these super shiny gold edges that I think look fantastic. Another thing that's really cool about this edition is it does come with a lot of extra bits. You get all these different pieces from the books and inscriptions, as well as these huge fold-out maps. Who doesn't love big old maparoonies? And there is a matching Hobbit and Silmarillion editions, and I'd love to grab them too one day. In my early teens, I really got into mythology, mainly from Rick Riordan and all his series, which is pretty much all I read at the time. However, I have a terrible memory and I've forgotten a lot of it, so I did pick up this stunning edition of Tales of Norse Mythology. I think this is the Barnes & Noble edition. This is a gorgeous leather-bound book with this gold and bronze inlay, has gold edges, got this really classy brown leather, and all the different signs and sigils on the spine as well. What more can you want? Another thing I really like about this edition is there's a lot of illustrations of the Norse gods and scenes from the different stories that you can read about in this book. And I love reading all these different tales in Norse mythology. At the same time, I did also grab the copy of Dracula, which I haven't read yet. However, it's iconic, it's classic, and it's also a beautiful edition. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I'm pretty sure I grabbed this after reading Empire the Vampire and thinking, I need more vampires. Next on up, we have a new edition that just arrived recently, and that is Sword of Kaigen. This was a special edition published by Wraithmarked Creative. This is the first ever Wraithmark book I've received, and I am so impressed. First of all, the cover, absolutely stunning, done by Felix Ortiz. It is beautiful. I love the colors in it. I think it's a fantastic cover. You can't really go wrong with Felix Ortiz. He's always coming out with these top tier covers. But even just the quality of the paper and the, what I think is silverleaf inlays for some of the design on the jacket, which is done by the also incredible Sean King. He does a lot of the cover design rather than the illustration work for Wraithmarked Creative, and they always look amazing. The naked hardback is a lot more simple in design. It has some hiragana and kanji on the front with this diamond design work that's also inlaid with this silver leaf. I think it looks really classy and nice, and it really gives a good feeling and tone to this Asian Japanese style story. One thing I've seen recently that I think is really, really nice is the first pages of chapters being black and then with white text. It really does make an edition stand out and just look really classy. There is a weathering design on all of the pages that I'm not sure how I feel about. I've not seen anything like that before. It's quite unusual, but okay. And there are some full page illustrations inside the book as well. And I'm probably going to be reading this in December. Might set up a buddy read, maybe, if that's something that people are interested in. Let me know. Now, this wouldn't be a special edition list if I didn't bring up Broken Binding. If you ask someone what their favorite Broken Binding edition is, you'll get a ton of different answers because they're all unique and stunning in their own way. A lot of their special editions do come through their subscription, which is really difficult to get onto. However, they do also sell just one-off or sets of special edition books on their website. However, the set that I do want to show off was part of their subscription, and that is the Tide Child Trilogy. I always thought the covers for the series were really cool. However, with the design carrying on to the edges with this black and white scene of this boat in the ocean with some dragons underneath, really just make these editions pop. Also, the naked hardbacks of these look absolutely incredible. This is going to sound really like I'm putting too much thought into it, which may be the case. For the covers, I always got the idea that this was on top of the ocean. You're looking at the boats and the dragons, a bit like with the stenciled edges. However, when you look at the naked hardback, the fact that it's black with the silver bringing out the detail, it kind of gives this idea that it's under the water. As you can see, there's bubbles and someone is clearly dead in parts of a ship. I just think that that's such a clever design. I don't know if that was designed that way because of that, but it's a very cool touch. And I do want to shout out the artist Katrina Prince, who does a lot of Broken Binding's additional works with the stenciled edges and the naked hardbacks, and she did an incredible job. However, we are far from done about talking about Broken Binding. I have more books. So far, Broken Binding have done the First Law trilogy and also the Great Leverers trilogy, which is 3 standalone books. Can't remember the name. It begins with L, the Great L something. The First Law trilogy was actually the first ever set they released in their subscription. And what's funny is I was actually following the Broken Binding before they set up their subscription. Yeah, I knew them before it was cool. That's not how I meant that. And you could sign up for their subscription before they even said what the first set of books were. And I did. I signed up, and then the first set was The First Law, which I'm super pleased about because Joe Abercrombie is a titan and I know I'm going to enjoy his work when I get to it. However, I do feel guilty because I now have 6 books that all look amazing and I've not read them yet. I will. Maybe the start of next year. I just started Hob, so I don't want to get wrangled up in another huge series. It's on the list. It's going to be soon though. I have another trio of books I want to show from Broken Binding, and that is their indie press. They released the Pillars of Peace Omnibus, which is a bound up trilogy from Tom Dumbrell, and this was the first indie special edition that they ever released. It was before they announced that a leg of their company, it's fairly new, that they're going to start releasing more indie special editions, but this was still technically their first one, and it is beautiful. The art and also the design work is done by Katrina Prince. Next up, we have Of Blood and Fire, which, if you're in the indie space, you will have heard the name Ryan Cahill once or twice before. The cover art is done by an artist called Nemo, and it is a beautiful illustration with this gold leaf around the edges. The naked hardback is designed to look a bit like the dragon egg that is pertinent part of the story. This one is also filled to the brim with interior art from different artists. There's some from Felix Ortiz, there's some from Randy Vargas, and their most recent release is Illborn. And Katrina Prince again did the cover and design for this. I love this ornate symbolic design around the front and the back, and Aduel on the tree on the naked hardback as well. Next on up, we have the Illumicrate Greenbone Saga. I love these editions so much. They're so simple, but just so effective. They've not got a dust jacket. They don't have any added material, no illustrations or anything like that, but they have these beautiful designs on the edges, and I love these redesigned covers. I also want to add that these are really nice to read from. They're fairly robust and I don't feel like I'm going to do them any damage, so I wouldn't be afraid to chuck them in a bag and go on a trip with them. Next on up, we have the most expensive book I own, and that is the Dragonsteel edition of The Way of Kings. Not only is this probably my favorite edition that I own, it's also my favorite series of all time, and I bought this with some money I was gifted from several different people for graduating university, so it also just holds very special sentimental place in my heart for me. It comes in 2 volumes because it's a Stormlight Archive and they're huge. I don't think you can leatherbound a normal Stormlight Archive book in 1 volume. And what I really like about this is the first couple pages have all the different covers from different editions of the book in different countries. So a lot of this art I hadn't seen before. I really like this mosaic style. I'm not sure what country had this edition, but it is stunning. There was already a ton of art with Shalon's drawings throughout the Stormlight Archive. However, we now get additional art with this edition. Again, it feels really robust. I wouldn't be afraid to read from this edition. I had just read Way of Kings fairly recently when I got these editions, so I didn't read it with this edition, but I am going to do a reread at some point, and I will definitely be reading from this. And I cannot wait to see what they do with the Words of Radiance, leatherbound. Continuing on with the Dragonsteel editions, we have the 3 special editions that are currently out, but so far they all look incredible. I will say that Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is not only my favourite looking edition, but also my favourite story. I had so much fun with this book, and the cover is beautiful. I love this sort of neon colour design, and all the sketches inside fits so well with this more anime aesthetic that ties quite well into the story. But not only that, the formatting for each of the special editions all have their own little quirks, and you can tell they really sat down and thought about all these small details that just really makes these editions stand out. I don't want to talk about them because I feel like it would spoil it, especially some of the dual tone color designs and the reasons behind that they did with Tress. I think that was super creative. Okay, we're going to go back to Broken Binding for a minute to look at this duology, and that is the Priory of the Orange Tree and A Day of Fallen Night. In particular, those sprayed edges. I didn't realize you could get so much detail on page edges. It's absolutely insane. And the fact that it's dragons is just double points. I do really like the colours in the covers and just the standard designs. The naked hardbacks look nice as well. But it was really just those edges that made me think, whoa! And last but certainly not least, we have, it's not even a special edition, Harbinger of Justice. I mean, look at that cover. Beautiful. And what's even better, the standard hardcover has a naked hardback with the design without the typography. So if you just want to gaze at that beautiful art by Felix Ortiz, you can do that too. Highly, highly recommend, you know? And that is just some of the most beautiful books in my collection. Let me know which one was your favourite. And if money in stock was no object, what book would you get? Because there are some damn pretty books out there. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Outro.